Okay, so today it's our first journey into testing, really. So even though following test-driven development, it's usually the thing we do first, well, it is the thing we do first, we didn't introduce it day one of the course, right? We wanted to get you familiar at least with the language of JavaScript and React first, before we introduced some testing. That one's probably best, right? Cool. So some of you may be thinking about, rather than doing a presentation during the course, to instead create your own challenges on the platform. So if you're going to do that, it would be useful to know at least the principles of testing and the principles of test-driven development. Does anyone know how I get to this screen to create our first exercise on the platform? Yeah, so it's just down the left-hand side, exercise list. You can click on that, and it's a relatively simple interface, I think. Yeah, you don't have to write it purely in code. Ricardo's developed a graphical user interface for you. Yeah, so you can literally just enter the title, what sort of symbol you want to have for your training. So it was mentioned that the other day we wanted maybe some individual questions on map or split or join or those sorts of things, right? Yeah. So that could be someone in the group's task. They could create 5 questions on one of those topics, yeah? So maybe split, right? So you can literally just give it a title, symbol for split. Don't know. Dot split. That works. Yeah. I assume it's JavaScript, and I don't know if you want beginner or intermediate. It could fall under any of those, really. Yeah. If you wanted to put some resources, all you've got to do is go to your MDM split. That looks about right to me. Copy the link. And that could be the resource. Not sure if we can write it like that or whether we have to give a little short link, but anyway, for now that's fine, it's just a draft, yeah? So you could create that just by clicking the tick above, and then you get a slightly different view. It's asking you to add some unit tests, yeah, which is what we're going to cover today in our TDD workshop. Now it's a little bit different with JavaScript because we've done it very, very simple on the platform. If, for example, we went to a training exercise, and maybe we went to filter, and we did that again, and we can clearly see that our test assertion in this case is on the left-hand side. The code we're going to write to pass that test is on the right. And that is essentially our very, very basic test. Yeah, so this, in essence, is still TDD. It's a very, very simple version of TDD, but it is still TDD. What does TDD stand for? Absolutely. What does that mean? So it's a way of testing, right? It includes the principles of testing or a design pattern of testing, and in what order do we do things then in test-driven development? It's very repetitive, so it will be a very, very small cycle, yeah, that we keep adding to and improving. But what do we do first? Do we write the function first? Do we write the test first? What do we do in testing?
Write the test scenarios first.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely write the tests, or at least one test to begin with, and then you write the minimal bit of code to pass that test. Then, if your function needs additional functionality, you can write additional tests and then bounce back to the code again. So write the code to pass the additional tests, maybe refactor the code, and it's a very cyclical approach, yeah? So you might have often heard green, red refactor. I'm sure if we look at an image, not shopping, look at one of these images and look right in the middle, it actually says TDD there. I just want the image, please, not the whole website. Did not look the same to me, did it? Wow. And now I've got rid of the page as well. Let's try again. I'm just going to pick another one. That was all. That at least looks the same as what we have. All right. So you can see it's a very cyclical process. Sometimes it's abbreviated like this: red, green, refactor. So we'd start at the red place. We'd write a failing test. Of course, it's going to fail because we haven't written any code to pass the test. Then we write just enough code to pass it. And then optionally, we can optimize and clean up the code without adding any new functionality. And then if we require some additional functionality, which usually we're going to, it's not just going to be a very, very simple function, then we write another test that will of course fail, write the code to pass it, refactor, and so on, right? You just keep going in this very, very small development process of writing tests and writing the passing code to pass those tests. Of course, those tests are then there forever, so if you make any changes to your application, if you rerun the test, they should still pass. Yeah, so it's a way of checking that we haven't regressed our application and broken it somewhere down the line where we added some new features. So that's all very well and good. We sort of know what it is, but how do we actually go about writing our tests? One option could definitely be to use some sort of testing framework, and the reason I've highlighted Jest in this case is because it's built into the Create React app suite that you have currently been using. If you loaded up a Create React application, you're going to end up with this sort of file structure. Inside, so very, very basic, right? We just got app. We even got a test file, app.test.js. I don't know whether you noticed that when you first booted up your Create React app to start your projects, but there is a test file in there, just a very, very basic one, just to check that things render without crashing. That's all it's doing. I'll leave it there for now. Which one of these scripts have you been using the most? Start. So you've used start quite a lot to run your server. Yeah, again, that's something that's built into Create React App. It comes with a pre-configured server so you can test your React applications in the browser. You've also begun to use the build folder, yeah, to bundle up your application into static files so that we could serve it from a server somewhere like Heroku. An external server such as Heroku could serve those static files for us. There's also test. What does that one do? Yeah, it's a test runner, right? So it will help you run your tests that you have created. And eject is just if you need some additional functionality that Create React app doesn't offer, you can eject out of the pre-configured tools and put your own configurations in there instead. Yeah, but don't worry about that one for now. So how do I then run my test script?
npm run test.
Good guess, yeah. npm run test, the same format. When I do that, it comes up with this sort of message. No new tests found related to any files changed since last commit. Fair enough. But it says press A to run all the tests, or run Jest with the double hyphen watch all. Yeah. So I'm just going to type A to run all the tests, and that will search all of my application for any files called filename.test.js, and it will run those files. It will then give us some feedback, what passed, what failed, and so forth. Yeah? So that's a inbuilt test runner to make testing a bit easier for your Create React apps.
This only test React, or you can use it to test JavaScript?
Nope. So you can test pure JavaScript as well, and we'll definitely look at testing pure JavaScript today because that's the easiest way to begin. Yeah. Testing React, we often have to test at the component level, which is a little bit more complicated than just testing an individual JavaScript function. Yeah. So we're just going to start at the very basics, the very basic unit test for just a JavaScript function. As you can read there with Jest, it works with quite a lot of different projects, right? You could run Jest tests on Node as well, with TypeScript, Angular even, yeah. So it's quite flexible. So some nice documentation there if you want to read it. Just jest.io is the website. All right. So how do I create a new test file? Let's say we want to have our first split method, our first split test.
You create a new file there.
I would just create a new file in source, exactly. And I could call it split question 1 or something. Dot what?
Does it have to...
Dot test. Dot JS. And then the format for writing my test. Look, now it's actually detected, because I'm still running my test runner, that I've got 2 test files. One of them's passed, the default test. One of them's failed, the test we haven't yet written. It's obviously failed, yeah, because it's returning nothing. Test failed to run, yeah, there is nothing to run. So how do we...
So that's what you meant by right? When you said right failing test. This is the initial state.
Well, I wouldn't count this as a failing. It is a failing test, definitely, but it's not even written yet, is it? We need to at least write a test format.
Just defaults.
Now it's going to include it.
Yeah, let's actually write a test. Yeah, I've created the file. Let's write a failing test. How would we just test that our test suite is set up correctly? Do a smoke test, right? Yeah. So how can I write a smoke test? Does anyone know the syntax that we often use for writing tests?
You invoke a function?
No. Invoke a function, sort of. What function? What function are you thinking
No,
of?
I meant when we are on the training, there's first like a pseudocode explaining a bit what are we expecting, and then is a function invoked.
So you're saying
equals to
that sort of stuff. Yeah. So I said it's a little bit simpler on the platform. This is almost a very, very basic approach to testing, but it's not really a proper test. Yeah, you're just invoking some code and seeing if it equals a certain output. It follows the same principles, but it's not too robust. Yeah, we're going to try and make ours a little bit more robust using a testing framework. So we can write the word test, or we can write it. Yeah, initial test. And then we can open some brackets. Our first argument to that is a description. Whatever, at this stage, yeah. We'll make it actually mean something later on. Then our second argument is a function. And this function is the thing that we actually, it's now recognizing that I've got a valid test. See, look. So we've got the correct syntax there at least, but we need to have some expectations, some assertions, yeah? What are we trying to test? So there's a keyword called expect. Whoops, I don't know what happened there. Don't know why it's auto-completing like this for me. So expect, put a bracket please. No, why? Yeah, I'm going to have to put the space then and come back, I guess. Alright, fine. So we expect, you can do it very, very basically to begin with. So write a failing test, expect true to be false, for example. And now, of course, that test is failing. Why? Well, our test was expecting the result of false, and it received true. So this is just a smoke test, right? Just to check that we've got the syntax right, and of course we expect it to fail. There's no way ever that true could be equal to false.
Sorry, why does it say that expected false if between the brackets of expect you put true?
Yep, so our expectation, we're expecting whatever we test in here, this could be your function that you're testing. Yeah,
okay.
we expect the outcome of the function to be false.
Okay.
But in our case, we've just provided it with a value, true, so that we write a failing test, just a failing smoke test, yeah? So of course, if we pass in true, what do we actually expect the result to be? We expect the result to be true as well. If we do that, we've got a passing test. Yeah, so that's a smoke test. We're not testing any function in particular. We're just testing that our inbuilt test runner seems to be working. Yeah, seems to be making sense. If we wanted to write more than one test, and how to describe it, to run more than one test collectively, then we could put a couple of different tests inside of a block. Does anyone know what that block is called, or the name that we would use to invoke the method? The way we've used test there, we can write another word to group a block of tests together. Anyone done TDD in their past jobs? No? Really? Oh, you have done it, but you don't remember what it is. Yeah, so we can have a described block of code. Don't know the syntax on this one, but it's fairly common, I think, to have at least described blocks. What testing framework did you use at your previous job? Okay, yeah, I don't know what it is. I haven't used them, but yeah. Okay, so we can do the same sort of thing, yeah? We can test a block of tests using the describe keyword. Our second argument again is going to be a function, and we can put multiple tests then inside of our describe block. So now, we've only got two test files, of course, and we're testing a block of tests that returns a failing test. And obviously, again, it highlights the line where it failed. All good, right? Exactly what we expected. However, this is pretty useless still. Let's actually test something. So if I've got a split question1.test.js, I might as well put a split question1.js as my actual function that I want to test, yeah? So I could create a function over here in this file. I'll just call it split questions. And we're not going to write the function yet. We're going to, of course, write the test first. So what sort of training would you like to do on split? What do you want to understand about split?
With which kind of values it works? If it works
With which
array or
kind of
strings
values
or
it works? Okay.
Just
So in other words, so you can have a describe block. What input? How can I phrase that into a test?
Let's take a word and split it into.
Yeah, I mean, an easier way would just to be, we can test split words into characters. We might want to see how we can split a sentence into words, right? They could be our two tests. And we expect that when we invoke our split questions function, where is it? Over here, split questions function. And we pass in what?
sentence.
Yep. So what sentence should we pass in?
Hello world.
Hello world, the typical thing.
That has to be only 2 words, right?
Yeah, we've got 2 words, it's okay, right? What do we expect the result of splitting hello world into characters to be? 2? Is that what you said?
No, H, comma, a string.
Okay, I mean, look, I'm not going to argue with the test. Maybe we haven't fully understood what we all want to do, but if you want to say, when we invoke this function with hello world, we want the result to be 2, let's write the functionality for that.
But shouldn't be an array with.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking along the lines of, right? We want an array with HELLO, but let's just say we want to do that for now. Right? When the function split questions is invoked with hello world as the input, we expect the result to be 2. Right? It's just fine, whatever. So our test could now be changed. Return 2 from invoking split queues function. Right, something like that. I don't think I need that. I think that was the weird little syntax thing that was coming up earlier. if I want to test the split queues function, how am I going to get it into this file?
Import.
Import it. So let's say import split queues from so dot / split q1. And then that will mean I can actually access that function. So let's say we've got a test there at least, right? It's failing, which is a good start. We write the failing test first. And it's failing on line 5. Because when we invoke split queues, we definitely don't get 2 back. We instead get type error. Split queue, the default import is not a function. Why is that? Why have we got that error?
Because we haven't written a function yet.
Because we haven't written a function, and specifically we haven't exported our function. So if we export a function, we've at least got something to test. Our test runner is now complaining not that we haven't got a function to run, it's complaining that there is no object equality. So in other words, we expected 2 and we received undefined because our function is not returning anything. So now we need to write the function to pass this test.
What if I just select 2 there? Will it work?
You might want to have this sort of layout as well, so that you can see your test on the left hand side, and then you can see the code that you're writing to pass that test on the right hand side. Why? Well, we generally read left to right, so it makes sense to have what we're doing first, not that one, sorry, what we're doing first on the left hand side and what we're doing afterwards on the right hand side. So how am I going to make this test run?
Wait, if I return number 2, just 2,
Yeah,
will it work?
so if you literally just return that, that will actually pass the test.
But it doesn't help you learn split.
But it doesn't help us learn split, so it's not really a very good.
This is actually a learning curve as well, because now I know it's expected.
But it could be an initial test for you, right? It could be an initial test just to check that you're able to correctly import a function and test that function returns the result that you expected. If for some reason we wanted it to return an array with 2 inside, can I just put an array with 2 inside and it will work? So obviously it's failing at the moment because I haven't finished it, but yeah, so if I close that array,
Yeah, why not?
ooh, still fails. Why? We touched on this very briefly once in a workshop. What's the difference between the number 2 and an array 2? Don't say one's a number, one's an array. Yeah, of course, but what is the...
Is it looking over index 2?
No, I mean, look, I could literally copy this from here and put it in my method down here. It's definitely identical. Still going to fail. Why is it doing that? Yeah, who said that? Keyone? So if we do equalities like that, arrays or objects, are they equal to another instance of an array or object? We get what? True or false? Not true, we get false.
Because there are different places in memory, something like that.
Yep. Because they're 2 different instances stored in 2 different places in memory. Whereas a primitive 6 is definitely just going to be equal to 6. But these more complex data types, they come out as different when we test them for equality. So to get around that, our testing suite has a different method for more complex data types, not called to be, but called to equal. Now, both tests pass. So if you expect a more complex return type, such as an object or an array, which hopefully we're going to expect soon, then we need to use this keyword to equal, this method to equal, instead of to be. Yeah, make sense? All right, shall we write a better test? So maybe return array of, let's do words first, right? It's going to be simpler for me to, so test return an array of, I'll just say words for now. So we expect split questions hello world to equal an array, and we would probably write our test to return those specific words, right? In which case I could make my description there a bit more descriptive as well. So again, yes, of course, I could actually do that for now and hard code it, and it would pass. What's the difference? Why is it not passing, guys? Where's the capital?
That's why it's a good idea to have more than one test, so the person on the result cannot hard code things.
Yep, that's exactly what I'm going to show you in a second, Seb. I'm going to show that we need more than one test so that we can't just get away with hard coding our results. So we so it's failing, reckons it's not deep equality. Let me just stop the runner and see whether if we start it again. No, so I don't know what happened there. So for some reason our test didn't update, but in fact it has actually passed, right? So those two tests work. But as Seb correctly said, if we have another test within the same block, and this time we pass in something else to the function, that sounds too bad if I say goodbye world, right? It's a bit ominous.
Greetings, Mars.
Greetings, Mars. There we go. See that? I can always count on Seb for some greetings, Mars. Now I assume this time we want to receive greetings, Mars.
And now Ahmed cannot get away with his evil plan of hard-coding things.
And now we can't fall prey to the villainous Ahmed and his plan to hard code all functions, indeed. So now we've got to write a better function that works for all of our test cases. You see how we're bouncing backwards and forwards between the two, the test and the actual function, yeah? So gradually we end up with the function that we want by being stricter and stricter with our tests. So how am I going to fix this then to return actually what I want?
We have to first figure out what we expected. And then
So our tests tell us what we expect. When we pass in hello world to our function, we want the array of hello and world. When we pass in greetings Mars to our function, we want the array of greetings Mars. So how do I write a function to solve that?
array 1, array 2. No, it's just an array
We haven't even got an array. What's our input?
String.
A string. Yep. But I could put it sentence or phrase or something like that, yeah? To make it more generic. Then, what do I do?
Sentence split.
Hey, we're finally using this split method that we said we were going to train. Sentence dot split. What type of split?
Space. You can split with space.
Split with a space. See if the test runs again. Everything passed. All 3 tests passed. The 2 test suites, yeah, because we had a describe block to contain 2 tests, and everything passed. So that essentially could be a beginner question for split training, right? Return an array of words from a sentence. Yeah, that could be your first split question. On the platform, you would write that slightly differently. So you would just have to write it like that. And the test suite that we've got in place would take care of it for you. So we could do something instead on the Kadiri platform. So if you want to write your own tests, we write the function name. I think we should be a bit more descriptive as well. So I'm going to go split into words. But I'm not going to write it there first, am I? I'm going to write it in my test first. And we're going to be testing split into words. And then we can write the function to pass the test once it's failed. I've just run out of room. Still failing. I think we're missing the S, right? Still failing. Let's get rid of that one, just so I know we've only got the one test. Okay, so it's failed. Why has it failed? Ah, just because of that down there. It doesn't like that syntax, yeah. Fair enough.
Why
That-
didn't they call it before?
Well, I'm just showing you how to do it on the platform, right? Because a lot of you want to write tests on the platform. So this is the proper way you do it for test-driven development, right? Using an actual testing framework with this sort of syntax, and that would work. But it's a little bit simpler if you want to do it on the platform. So I just wanted to show you that as well. Split Q1 Kodiri.js, right? So on the platform, all you would have to write is split into words, pass in your input, which is let's go with greetings Mars again. And then we expect that to be equal to greetings, comma, Mars, all inside an array, yeah? So that is all you would have to do on the platform if you wanted to create some questions. Whereas proper test-driven development, you should write that.
And if I want to test like to avoid hard code, I have to multiple.
So if you want to prevent people from hard coding things, yes, you need multiple tests. Alright? Otherwise, if that was the only test, I could of course just hard code 5, 3, 4, couldn't I? And that would get green for that one. Yeah? So we need multiple tests to prevent people from hard coding things.
What if I return another one as well? And hard code
How do you return another one, Ahmed?
maybe another array? I don't know.
What, you want to do another return statement? You can't do that, can you?
No, it will just cancel out.
Of course, yeah. So you can't return more than one thing.
So question on the syntax, because I'm just trying to, so is that the, for the test, the one on React, is that using Jest, right?
Yep.
Using the Jest framework, and that's the syntax to write that?
Yep, so look.
That's like the boilerplate syntax we need to follow every time, we just put in all the values we need to
Yeah.
test.
Absolutely. So here's some documentation from the Jest website, and you can clearly see, or I thought I had.
It's not very easy to understand the way they've written it.
Oh, I'm on before each. That's why. So DES describe. Yeah. So there's the describe method, right? Creates a block that groups together several related tests. It gives you an example, of course, if you've got an object. So our object might be in a separate file or a separate function even. This is what we just wrote, right? Describe some sort of description as a function which contains all of the tests, in this case 2 tests. The first one, we're testing, is it delicious? So the beverage is delicious. Well, we're just expecting it to have a delicious property, right? Expect object.delicious to be truthy, so that just tests whether it's truthy. So if that had any value in there, true, the word delicious, that would obviously pass that test, right? To be truthy is another method. To be falsy, so the opposite method.
So you can put as many tests as possible in there.
Absolutely, you can put as many tests as you like in a block that fulfill the criteria of the function that you need to write.
Okay, and then that's it.
That's it, essentially, yeah, but of course you've got a lot more helper functions involved in a testing framework. You know, we expect if someone does something like that we get an error thrown. Yeah, to throw error. You can loop over. There's so much you can do, right? But it's hard to obviously do that all in one workshop. But the main things are just getting your describe block set up, your individual tests set up. To be and to equal are really commonly used methods for your basic tests. And that's all you need to know to write tests on the platform. Of course, we can go a bit deeper into it. And as well as that, I did have open, but maybe I've shut it now. Let me just, so we've already got 4 testing videos on our platform. Oh, that's me, hello. And Ricardo has done so many tests in his life that, oh, I don't want to go there, do I? That it's a good place to, it's on YouTube anyway, right? He's a good guy to listen to about testing, in other words. So if you just go on our YouTube channel and you can search for testing, and then that one's done by a student, but if you come down a little bit you should see that there are 4 testing workshops already there, yeah, that are done from all previous boot camps. And interestingly enough, they all cover something slightly different as well, so it's actually good to watch more than one of them. They all give you the basics, but he's talked about different frameworks and different add-ons in each one. So
So, so the work we just done now is obviously the Jest framework, but there's also enzyme as well, isn't it?
Yep, sure. You've got things like enzyme. You've got things like Mocha.
Are they the same kind of similar syntax, or?
A lot of them will at least follow a similar syntax for the actual tests. Yeah, they have different helper methods, and they're designed for slightly different things. Some will be better at unit testing. Some will be better at testing your whole application. Yeah, or individual components. So enzyme is often what we use to test our components. Yeah, for React. Yeah. But I think we're in the process of replacing it with Mocha anyway, because Mocha is just a bit more powerful. Mocha,
Why
yeah.
couldn't you choose just of all of them?
Why couldn't you use all of them?
No, why
No.
could they choose just of all the rest?
Enzyme is what they use.
So we're moving to Mocha at the moment just because it's more powerful. Jest was what came with Create React App to begin with. So it's what a lot of people start off with. Yeah, more of a lightweight one than some of the other ones. But if you want more and more complex tests, you have to go for just the heaviest framework in the end.
That's a good place to start,
Jest is a good place to start, absolutely.
So this is for React testing, basically.
It can be used for React testing, yeah.
What about for JavaScript?
What we've done is the JavaScript, right? It's just a JavaScript function that we tested. So that was just a plain old JavaScript function. It wasn't a component or anything like that. Yeah, so what we've done here is testing for JavaScript. Testing your components is a little bit more advanced because you have to consider a few more things, right? It's not just a straight old parameters and then a return statement. It could be many other things going on. You need to render your component. Jest can again do all of that, as can enzyme and other ones, but you would perhaps need to access different parts of the documentation, right? The snapshot testing is more what we're doing for the UI testing. Yeah, we're taking a snapshot of how something looks at a particular point in time. We're not using Jest for that, but it's the same principle, right?
Mocha is the new kid on the block, basically.
Mocha's not a new kid. I can't remember exactly when it first came into being. There we go, 2011, right? So it's definitely not a new kid. It's been around 8 years, but it is one of the most, well, they say simple, but I would say powerful ones. Mm-hmm.
In tech world, which one do they use mostly?
Maybe it's an obvious question, but this is used obviously to help people learn.
It's not necessarily used to help people learn, it's helped to prevent bugs in your code, right?
Right.
So if you've got these tests and maybe a different programmer has written this function originally, you need to add some updates to that function or combine it with other parts of your application. You want to be sure that there's tests in place that you don't break something, or just that you write the function that does what is expected. So you would often have to consider edge cases. So what happens if someone throws a curveball into our function, and rather than it getting a nice string that it can deal with, what happens if we send it I don't know, what happens if we send it an object, right? Oh, I've messed up no I haven't. So what happens if you had an object with a string inside it? Are we still going to get the same thing? No, of course we're not. So then could we write a better function to say something like if sentence equals string, sorry, not if sentence, if type of sentence equals string, right? That was my pseudocode approach. Yeah, so now we're translating it into actual code. Then we can do that. Else, so we just want the minimum code, remember, to pass the new test that I put in there. So else, if even, type of sentence equals what? Object. I'm not saying this is going to work for all cases, but I'm just trying to pass the test. So if type of object equals, if type of sentence equals object, how am I going to get greetings Mars back?
Can you convert that to string first?
I could convert it to string, but why don't I just access the string inside of it, which is stored inside of the greet key? So I could do sentence.greet.split. Still not liking it. Test suite failed to run. Well, that would break it, I guess. So let's quit out of that. Let's try running the test again, see whether it will run. Failed. Test suite failed to run again. Is that because I've got some syntax errors? Yes, it is, right? So we expect it to equal. Oh, I'm gonna make it bigger, guys. I can't deal with it like that. Anyone spot the errors in the syntax? To equal. Says it doesn't like that. It's expecting another bracket. Why is it expecting another bracket? For the test? Or for... I don't see it, to be honest. Maybe I didn't have a double bracket there. I think that was probably the issue, right? Okay. So let's see. Test is still failing. Ooh. Yeah. So can we see the difference? So we expected an array of greetings, comma Mars, and we instead got array of G, R, E, E, T, D, 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 D. So what have I probably done? My separator is probably an empty string rather than a space, and it is. So if we fix that, it passes. Now, it's a bit rubbish because what happens if we sent in another object and it didn't have a property called greet, it had a property called something else, the test is going to fail again, right? So it's not perfect by any means, which is why we'd continue to write more tests or better tests that were more specific and really tested the edge cases of our function and what it could handle. We might just want this function to say split strings into words, and therefore if it's not of type string, then we just throw an error, yeah, and say this function only works with strings, or please make sure your data type is a string. Yeah, that would be an easier way around it. Otherwise you've got to consider lots and lots of different inputs. So you see how when we're designing software, we need to make things quite specific and be really careful of what gets inputted and outputted, and consider all these cases. It's easy on the platform, right? We throw the values in for you, and you only have to write the function to deal with those specific values. But in a real program, the input could be any value in JavaScript, which is another reason perhaps why people tend to use things like TypeScript as well, right? Then we're locking in variables to certain types. If we initialized our variable as a string, it will always be a string. It can't be assigned to some other data type. We went a little bit off topic, but I hope it was at least useful. So I didn't want to go too much deeper into testing really today than just setting up a basic test like that on a single function. So make sure you export your function, import it into your test file. If you want multiple tests, put them in a describe block, and then the syntax for a test is just that. Test method, description as a string, comma, and then the function. And inside of that function, you can use any of the helper utilities that it's gone again now, any of the helper utilities that are built into the testing language that you're using, testing framework that you're using.
Normally, to be useful, we would need at least 2 tests, right?
Yeah, you'd need quite a few tests. Depends on how complex your function is and what it handles, but yeah, at least 2 tests, at least.
If you have
usually
one,
many more.
It seems it's useless. Or
Pretty useless, yeah. Any questions? Yeah, it's one of those topics that's quite large, right? So you need to just look at it more, digest it. I'll put a board challenge up on the board that will force you to write tests. So that will give you some forced practice as well. Yeah? Cool. Thank you.